Hi guys, this is James here. We are doing another listening passage. It's a lecture passage about environmental science. So without further ado, let's get started. So I'll play the listening passage and write notes first. Here we go.
Listen to part of a lecture in an environmental science class.
I'd like to take you back about 11,000 years ago when Earth entered the latest interglacial period. Interglacial periods are typically periods of time between ice ages, when the climate warms and the glacial ice retreats for a time before things cool off again and another ice age begins. And for over the past several million years, Earth's sort of default climate has actually been ice age. But we have experienced periodic regular thaws, and the last one, the one we're in now, started about 11,000 years ago. Now, the typical pattern for an interglacial period, and we've studied several, is that the concentration of carbon dioxide and methane gas actually reaches its peak. That is, there's the most carbon dioxide and methane gas, greenhouse gases, in the atmosphere just after the beginning of the interglacial period. And then, for reasons which are not entirely clear, the concentration of greenhouse gases gradually goes down. Now, the climate continues to warm for a while because there is a lag effect. But gradually, as the concentration of greenhouse gases goes down, Earth starts to cool again, and eventually you slip back into an ice age. However, for the latest interglacial period, the one we're in now, this pattern did not hold. That is, the concentration of carbon dioxide and methane dipped a little bit after peaking at the beginning, near the beginning of the interglacial period, but then it began to rise again. What was different about this interglacial period than the other ones? Well, one of the big differences is human activity. People began to raise crops and animals for food instead of hunting for them. This is the agricultural revolution, and it began to happen in the earliest stages about 11,000 years ago. Now, scientists have tended to regard the agricultural revolution as a beneficiary of the fortuitous shift in climate. However, some new theorists of climate have proposed that perhaps humanity was having an effect on the climate as far back as the beginnings of the agricultural revolution. When you grow crops and pasture your animals, one of the things you do is you cut down the forests. If you cut down the forests, when you burn the trees for fuel and don't replace them with other trees, or when you just leave them to rot and don't allow other trees to grow, you end up with a lot more carbon in the form of carbon dioxide getting into the atmosphere. Another gas associated with the spread of agriculture is methane. Methane forms in large concentrations above wetlands. And as it turns out, the cultivation of certain grains creates vast areas of artificial wetlands and probably drastically increases the amount of methane getting into the atmosphere over and above what would be there. So agriculture, the spread of agriculture, we're talking over thousands of years. But this could very well have had a profound effect on the composition of Earth's atmosphere. It's kind of ironic to think that absent that effect, it may be that we would be heading into an ice age again. In fact, back in the 1970s, a lot of theorists were predicting that, the climate would start to cool and we'd slowly enter into a new ice age. And then they were puzzled as to why it didn't seem to be happening. Now, what are the implications for the future? Well, it's a little tricky. I mean, you could say, well, here's an example of human activity, the agricultural revolution, which actually was beneficial. We altered the climate for the better, perhaps, by preventing an ice age. But then, industrialization, of course, has drastically increased the amount of carbon dioxide that humans are putting into the atmosphere. The burning of fossil fuels tends to put a lot of CO2 into the atmosphere. So we're entering into uncharted territory now in terms of the amount of carbon dioxide, the concentrations of carbon dioxide that are now being put into the atmosphere as a result of industrialization and the use of fossil fuels.
Okay, how did you go? So I'm pretty confident about my notes. I think it's pretty comprehensive. So let me go through this with you and for you, and let's understand completely what the listening passage was about by reviewing and understanding my notes, okay? So 11,000 years ago, it was latest interglacial period, okay? All right, so I think it's interglacial ice age period, okay? In between ice age, okay? So in the listening, I wrote down real time. Interglacial period means between ice age, right? So ice age is supposed to be ice age, so everything's frozen, I guess. So interglacial period is between ice age, where climates are warm enough for, you know, like humans and animals to thrive, live, I guess, okay? So latest interglacial period, obviously I'm alive. You are too. So we are in interglacial period. We are not in ice age. So we are in the middle of latest interglacial period from 11,000 years ago, okay? So usually during interglacial period, there is a pattern, right? So CO2, carbon dioxide, and methane gas peak, so reach the maximum, the highest, at the beginning of interglacial period, okay, when it just first starts. And then gas gradually comes down, the amount, okay? But it's still warm for a while, interglacial, so it's still warm for a little while, but gradually cools down to reach ice age. So that's at the end of interglacial period because it enters ice age ultimately, right? Okay. But the latest interglacial period, which we are in right now, from 11 years ago to right at this moment, thank God, we are not in ice age. The latest interglacial period does not follow the pattern, like usual pattern of interglacial period. So CO2 and methane dropped a little bit. It says it reaches the peak at the beginning of the interglacial period, but it gradually goes down. So CO2 and methane went down a bit, but it's not going down permanently. It's kind of rising again, which is different to usual pattern. Okay? All right? So why it's different? Why? Why the pattern is different for latest interglacial period only? Let's find out. The reason is humans start raising crops and animals rather than hunting them. So agricultural revolution started around 11,000 years ago. Surprise, surprise. So 11,000 years ago means start of interglacial period that we are in now. So agricultural revolution started roughly around beginning of interglacial period. Okay, so what has agricultural revolution? So becoming a farmer and raising animals rather than hunting them has anything to do with it? Okay, so at first, agricultural revolution seemed to be like a beneficiary of changing climate. Beneficiary means a party, a group, a person, or a thing that receives the benefits because of some outcome. So, at first, many people thought agricultural revolution was like a result of changing in climate, okay? But new theory says human affected the climate, meaning agricultural revolution is not the beneficiary, it's not the result, outcome, but actually cause. So human action, agricultural revolution, is cause of changing in climate, okay? Affected the climate change, which in this context, specifically, CO2, carbon dioxide and methane rising again, and the temperature not cooling down, okay? Right? So why is that? Like, humans cut down forest, and if forests are not replaced, so they don't plant the trees to fill up the forest they have cut down, then if there are not enough forest, then that causes more CO2, increase in amount of CO2. Second reason. Methane gas. So when farming, methane gas increases in amount, more methane gas in wetland, but in cultivating certain crop by doing agricultural, by doing agriculture, it creates a lot of artificial, means man-made, okay, not natural. So it created additional wetlands, okay? So more wetlands, more methane gas. So man made more wetlands by doing agriculture, so more methane gas. Very important detail, these two. It's like a body paragraph, okay? So first, they cut down forest, and it's not replaced, so more carbon dioxide. Second, due to agriculture, I guess, certain crops require more wetlands, so human created more wetlands, so there are a lot more methane gas. Now we know why, more carbon dioxide and more methane gas. So this is one of the hypotheses, right? This maybe, this is why it's happening this way. Next paragraph. So so this is why we are not entering towards ice age, right? So in 1970s, people said it's going to cool down again to gradually enter ice age, but you said CO2 and methane is rising again. So now it's implying we are not cooling down. Okay, we expect it to cool down to eventually gradually go towards ice age, but we are not. So it's like getting warmed up again. Okay, temperature is not really decreasing, not really going down. So what's going to happen in the future is tricky, hard to know. We don't know. So, for human, changing climate, if it was caused by agriculture, maybe it's a good thing because, we survive, right? We are not entering ice age. We are not going to freeze to death. However, industrialization, so basically factory, entering into manufacturing era from agricultural era. So, building factories and making things, producing things. It further increased carbon dioxide, as we all know, and burning of a lot of fossil fuels, coals and oil, petroleum, right? Gasoline, increase carbon dioxide also, right? So in the future, we really do not know what's going to happen in terms of interglacial period, but it's implying that maybe, continuation of burning fossil fuels and industrialization, perhaps carbon dioxide will continue to rise in the future based on the context, based on the contents it has mentioned. But the fact, the lecturer in the passage, professor, makes it very clear that we are not sure what's going to happen. Okay, we are not sure. Okay, but this is what is happened and happening, right now. Okay, so that's it. That's pretty comprehensive, right? So I think we're ready to tackle questions and get every question right. So let's look at the question. Okay, as usual, we have 6 questions in this section, 1 lecture passage section. So we are continuing the TOEFL listening set. So the 6 questions from question 12. So 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 we'll look at, okay? So question 12, what is the lecture mainly about? The effect of ice ages on the development of agriculture. So this is certainly true, but it's one part, okay? So we are looking for the whole lecture, okay, main idea of the whole lecture, not just one specific paragraphs, if it was a reading passage. So the effect of ice age on development of agriculture. And also, this was like an old theory, but the passage is more about how development of agriculture caused the ice age. So it's the opposite way, okay, from A. So either way, A is a wrong answer. B, a theory about change in Earth climate cycle. Yeah, very vague, but maybe a bit of a paraphrasing here, possibly. So a new theory is, so opposite to A, basically, okay, how humans' activity caused climate, okay, more broadly and specifically at the same time, how humans' actions, such as agricultural revolution, caused the interglacial period. Yeah, I like B. I think B is right. So this is how they make it a little bit more difficult, paraphrase and make it a little bit more general and broad. So you really have to work out what each word means, okay? You have to work that out. They don't just give to you directly, okay? A theory is a new theory about a change in Earth climate. So theory is human activity caused interglacial period to change. Yeah, so that's paraphrasing of B. So I think B is the answer. All right, let's check C. Let's check C and D. C, strategies to prevent Earth from entering another ice age. That's not the whole idea, nor we are not discussing let's not enter next ice age anymore. And these are things that we need to do. So that's C. So it's off topic. D, some effects on industrialization on Earth's atmosphere. This is definitely a minor, just one part. Okay, so it doesn't cover the whole passage. So question 12, answer is B. Okay, moving right along, question 13. What does the professor imply about Earth's climate over last several million years? I mean, it doesn't explicitly says over last several million years, but it's divided into two sections, right? 11,000 years ago, so the latest interglacial period we are in right now, to now, that's one chunk. And the other interglacial period. So anytime before 11,000 years ago. Okay? And long time ago, millions of years ago. From 11,000 years ago to whenever. Okay? 400 million years ago. I'm just whatever. Okay? So what does professor imply about Earth's climate over last several million years? So several million years, it's inference question, imply. So actual millions of years is not important. It's referring to the time longer than, older than 11,000 years ago. So not the latest current interglacial period, but all those times before that. Before the latest interglacial period, okay? So it follows the pattern, right? Only latest one doesn't follow the pattern. So if you follow the pattern, new interglacial period happened from Ice Age when carbon dioxide and methane gas are at its highest. So at its highest, peak means it's going to go down from there. And as it goes down, it stays warm for a little while, but eventually carbon dioxide and methane gas gradually continue to go down, and it enters a new ice age as it gradually cools down, okay? So that's the normal pattern. So we're talking about normal pattern, okay? Ice ages have alternated with warmer periods. Yeah, because interglacial period, the definition is between ice age, right? So from very long time ago, we had ice age, interglacial period, ice age, interglacial period, ice age, interglacial period. So A looks right. We are looking for two answers, guys, okay? It says click on two answers. One more. Recent ice ages. So this is already wrong because there is ice ages before and the latest ice age, no, it's ice age, not interglacial period, so maybe different, sorry. So recent ice ages, yeah, doesn't sound right because we don't go into recent ice ages, okay? But anyway, let's have a look. Recent ice ages have not been as cold as earlier. See, it's totally irrelevant. So recent 2, 3, 4 ice ages were warmer than earlier ice ages. We are not talking about actual temperatures of multiple ice ages at all, okay? Just the latest interglacial period, just one, okay? Not multiple. See, interglacial periods have become cooler, very similar to B, right? Okay? It's irrelevant. It's not mentioned this way at all. Okay? So plural already makes the answer very awkward. Okay. The previous interglacial periods, okay, were shorter than the current latest. Yeah, because pretty hard question. What is the interglacial period? In between ice ages, right? So I'll just write interglacial period like this, okay? And it continues, right? But the latest one does not follow the pattern. So this note-taking part tells us the answer, because usually it stays warm for a little while, but carbon dioxide, methane gas continue to decrease. It doesn't rise up again, the normal pattern, so that it gradually gets cooled down to enter the ice age. But what is the current one? So paraphrase of the latest is the current in this context. It does not follow the pattern. So it goes down a bit, carbon dioxide and methane, but it rises again, okay? And it says it prevented the ice age quite clearly here. So if we follow the pattern in 1970s, it's supposed to gradually cool down. Temperature should get cooler to get ready to eventually enter the ice age, but it did not happen. It did not happen that way. Okay, so these two parts of our note-taking, this part and this part, okay, this part and this part, tell us D is the answer. Okay, so current interglacial period is getting longer than previous interglacial period. This length is getting longer because we are not getting ready to enter the ice age, because the temperature is not gradually getting cooler. It's not. Yeah, good question, I think, this. Okay, so question 13, pretty clear, right? Yeah. So question 13, the answer is D. Okay, let's continue. Yeah, I thought question 13 was a very good question. Let's move on to question 14. According to the professor, what factor, so what is extending, making it longer, extending the duration of current interglacial period. The increase in amount of carbon dioxide gas and methane gas, okay? Because that's the difference. So if we are not extending the duration of current interglacial period, like previous question 13, means we are following the normal pattern, okay? So one difference that the current interglacial period, paraphrase the latest interglacial period right now, is that carbon dioxide and methane rise up again rather than continue to fall like other and previous interglacial period. That's the big difference. So because carbon dioxide and methane gas rising again, it's making the differences, right? That's only one difference in outcome, okay? So let's have a look at the answer choices. A shift, change in the location of wetland and forest. It's not, yeah, they're trying to make it tricky. They're trying to get the wrong answer from you, okay? They're trying to make it a little tricky, a little difficult, technically on purpose, right? So it's not about change in location, okay? It's making more wetlands in number, amount of wetlands, and they are getting rid of forest, cutting down forest. So it's about less forest by cutting down and more wetlands by agriculture. It's very different from changing location. Okay, so be careful. A little bit of trick, not too much. Yeah. B, the relatively, comparatively mild temperature of the most recent, what? This is never mentioned. It's not mentioned at all. It's totally irrelevant. Okay, C, the increased absorption, so absorption, absorbing, like receiving, accepting, okay? And it's increased absorption of certain atmospheric gases by farm crops. Increased absorption of certain atmospheric gases in the atmosphere. Okay, like, does it say certain farm crops, like, I don't know, like rice or wheat or whatever, okay, whatever the crops, potato, corns. Does the passage say these crops specifically, okay, because it says by farm crops, okay? So farm crops, yeah, so increased absorption of certain atmospheric gases by farm crops. So this certain atmospheric gases were absorbed by farm crops? No, it's produced more in the atmosphere. Okay, so I guess it's a little tricky, but it's not absorbed, received by farm crops. It's ridiculous. Okay, so these crops, these poor crops are like absorbing more carbon dioxide. These crops, no. Okay. An increase in the quantity of certain gases. So yeah, amount of carbon dioxide and methane gases in the atmosphere. Okay, it exists in Earth. Okay, and it says in the atmosphere several times, more than twice, but I didn't bother writing down in the atmosphere because I understood more carbon dioxide and methane gases in the air, basically. Okay, so that's what D means. Okay, very clear, right? So question 14, B. All right, question 15. According to the professor, what activities associated with the beginning of agriculture may have slowed or prevented the onset of predicted ice age? There are two things specifically, right? It's here. I said it was important information, right? When I was writing notes and explaining it to you, right? It's almost like a main body paragraph, right? So what possibly caused agricultural revolution to have an effect on the climate? First, by raising crops, you may cut down forest. And if forests are not replaced, it increased the amount of quantity of CO2. Second, wetlands, increasing quantity of wetlands would create more methane gas, and certain crops by agriculture creates more man-made artificial wetlands. Means more wetlands, more methane gas. So these two, okay? And it's click two answers. So clearing of trees, yeah, that's paraphrasing of cutting down the forests. And burning of fossil fuel, not answering the question. Domestication of certain animals, yeah, it doesn't say specifically which animals, horse, cow, I don't know, doesn't say. Cultivation of certain grains, so that's here, okay? Certain crops by agriculture creates more artificial wetland. Or you can listen to that part again in the listening passage to make sure, right? But you will find it. And that's why I wrote agriculture here to, paraphrase this part, okay? By agriculture, by raising certain crops, it creates more artificial wetlands, okay? Yeah. Told you. Question 15. So question 15 answer is A and D, coming from this paragraph in listening passage by our note-taking. Okay, let's continue. Question 16. What is the professor's attitude towards industrialization? It creates more carbon dioxide, and it potentially have a big effect on climate, because industrialization would increase the quantity of CO2. And from previous paragraphs, we know increased quantity of CO2 will have an effect on climate, okay? Make it different from, like a natural previous conditions, okay? It lengthens the interglacial period. Okay, A, he thinks that its effect, the industrialization's effects on Earth climate will decrease over time. He doesn't say that. He doesn't say industrialization that creates more carbon dioxide will decrease in the future. He doesn't say that. Like in the future, we don't know. But currently, or in the past, industrialization created a lot of carbon dioxide. That's what he says. So he does not say this at all. B, he's worried that it may speed the arrival of, it's a wrong inference, because if you create more carbon dioxide, that would delay the arrival of the next ice age. So it's actually opposite to potential answer, although it's very much over inference. But I mean, either way, it's a wrong answer. All right. Okay, C. He thinks that it may reduce the effects of agriculture on Earth climate. I mean, it's almost same as A. He doesn't say the effects of agriculture may be reduced. He does not say that at all. He says, in the past and now, a lot of CO2. In the future, not sure what's going to happen. So C, very much similar to A if you want to analyze. It's wrong, and also it's kind of like opposite direction to the answer that we're looking for. He's unsure. Yeah, he says he doesn't know. Right, let's look at the notes. In the future, it's tricky, right? Like we are in the new era, new era, new time, new terrain. So what's going to happen in the future? What would this bring to the future for us? We don't know. Okay, so unsure here is very clear and keyword. So he's not sure. He doesn't know about long-term effects. So it's a paraphrase of what's going to happen from now to the future. In this context, it's paraphrased to long-term effects. Okay. Yeah. So question 16, The answer is D. All right, let's finish on a high. Last question for this section. This is a listening question, very short. So listen carefully, and then we'll try to pick the right answer. Here we go.
What does the professor imply when he says this?
In fact, back in the 1970s, a lot of theorists were predicting that, the climate would start to cool and we'd slowly enter into a new ice age. And then they were puzzled as to why it didn't seem to be happening.
Okay, so what does professor imply when professor says, it's this part here in our note-taking, right? Okay, this part here. So in 1970s, a lot of experts, theorists, okay, predicted that it's going to cool down to eventually, slowly, go towards ice age. But why is that not happening right now? Okay, so what does professor imply? Okay, theorists sometimes make careless prediction. How is it careless? Okay, like what ground can you say, oh, that's just careless, that's ridiculous, that's dumb prediction without any evidence? How can you say that, right? Okay, B, theorists were unaware of some of the effects of human activity. Yeah, it's possible inference, okay? So theorists were maybe unaware what cutting down trees and making more wetlands or agricultural revolution would bring to the climate, right? Okay, they were unaware. If they were aware, they could possibly, I don't know, I'm just making this up, but logically, if they were aware what effect, what outcome would human activity would bring, then maybe they, would have guessed right. But because they were unaware, they didn't understand, they had no idea, they didn't know what human activities effects would be on environment, so their prediction came out to be wrong. So I think D is very strong possible answer. C, technology of the 70s was not sophisticated enough. Just not mentioned at all. Irrelevant. Okay, we are not imagining it. The answer should not be based on your imagination. Should be based on comprehension of English. So C is easy, no. D, scientists in the 70s overestimated the speed at which ice age progressed. What does D even mean? Okay, scientists in the 70s. So theorists, maybe scientists as well, overestimated, okay, the speed. So they thought the speed, so it would go faster, which ice age progresses. It's irrelevant once again. Not answering the question. Because question is almost asking why. Why would they do that? What does it say to us that, for the scientists to guess wrong? Okay. D just doesn't make any sense, right? Scientists overestimated speed. So they thought ice age progresses really fast. Okay. This is wrong in so many ways, but I'm not going to waste your time. But I want to be clear and explain to you, maybe overestimated the speed of interglacial period makes at least kind of logical sense a bit. But how can they overestimate the Ice Age progression speed. It's interglacial period progression, not Ice Age progression. So it's just totally wrong and irrelevant to the question and the contents of the passage. There you have it. I'm blabbing on, so I'll wrap up because I think it's clear, right? So question 17, the answer is, as I explained, B. Yeah, I mean, they were unaware, they didn't know, they didn't understand, they did not, so that they could not guess right. They guessed wrong. Why? Because they could not, they were not aware of it. They didn't know. They didn't get it. Okay, that's it. Sorry if I repeated myself, although you understood already. I just wanted to make sure that my explanation was super clear. Okay, that's another session done. So I'll see you again in the next video. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Let's keep going and see you soon. Bye.